Hello, my name is Chloe Radloff, student at Grand Canyon University, and today we will be discussing Arizona's Constitution, Arizona's government, and how it is a direct democracy and how that specifically ties into initiatives and referendums within their constitution. Constitutional initiatives allow citizens to make changes directly through amendments or passing laws on their own without having to involve legislature. Voters can add, modify, remove language through this process, like I said, without involving legislature at all, through a petition and ballot process. So a petition is drafted or an amendment or a new law is drafted by the people. There's a form. Any registered voter can do this, and the form is filled out with the state secretary, and then a petition is drafted for the proposed amendment if we're speaking about the Constitution specifically. And it has to be one topic specific. So the change or the amendment has to be one topic specific. And then the petition is drafted or is circulated through voters. An initiator needs to collect supporting signatures, and there has to be a 15% supporting signature. So 15% of the voting population needs to provide a supporting signature for this petition to move on to a ballot. Once the signatures are collected, it needs to go through a validating process. Often up to 20% of the signatures that they receive on a petition are invalidated. And so typically this 15% number has to be higher than actually 15% in order to ensure that it truly moves on. And then once the amendment or the new law actually makes it onto the ballot, a simple majority by voters during the next general election is required. There are also referendums. So referendums are the most common way for changes to the Arizona Constitution to be made. This process requires that someone in legislature drafts, proposes the bill, and then both the House, the State House, and Senate need to vote in order for it to move on to the ballots. So both the House and the Senate need to approve the change. The approval only requires a simple majority. So above 50%, it moves on. Once it passes both the House and the Senate, then the people get to vote. So once again, that bill or amendment or law goes to the ballots, and people with a simple yes or no vote get to vote on that law. Simple majority wins. Once again, 50% one way or the other, the bill is either passed or not. And again, just like initiatives, the people are the ones who have the ultimate say on whether or not that bill gets passed. So initiatives and referendums are similar in that they are both drafted and proposed, and then a citizen voter majority is needed to pass it. Initiatives, conversely, are harder to draft and get to the citizen ballot, right? They're proposed and drafted by citizens, whereas referendums are proposed by legislature. And initiatives require a petition, and getting signatures for a petition is not an easy thing. Referendums do not require that same petition. However, they do need a simple majority vote in both the House and Senate, whereas initiatives, once they get that petition signed and the signature is validated, it goes straight to the ballot, and the House and the Senate never see it. Initiatives are, like I said before, harder to propose, draft, and get on the ballot. Citizens are on their own. There's no help from the state, no financial support from the state to circulate these signatures. And signatures, like I mentioned before, can often be invalidated. So you need significantly more than that 15%. And that 15% is hard to get as it is. Many people argue that 15% is too high. States like California only require 8%, for example. And effective circulation requires funding, and funding is a barrier in itself. right? And there's also no geographical requirement. So oftentimes these petitions may be skewed to a specific region in the state and not necessarily representative of the state itself, right? While the process is flawed in some ways, arguably, and significantly more difficult, it is a route that allows citizens the direct opportunity to make amendments and changes to the law. It gives the citizens freedom to circumvent legislature and to see the changes they feel they need or that they want, and is a crucial part of what makes Arizona a direct government. Referendums are easier to get onto the ballots. They're the most frequently used form, like I mentioned before. But they also require a simple majority to pass in for the voters, so for the citizens, right? The simple majority in general in both the House, state, and the citizens makes it easier to pass, whereas like the United States Constitution typically requires a 2/3 or higher vote for things to be passed on. And then at the end, the governor does not get a vote. So unlike the US Constitution, where amendments or new laws are voted on by our president, in the Arizona state, the governor does not get to veto laws or amendments. The voters, the citizens, are the last ones to get to see that amendment or new law and vote on it or pass it or not. Like I've stated before, Arizona is a direct democracy. And the fact that regardless of where the bill or amendment comes from, ultimately the voters get the last say is a huge part of what makes it a direct democracy. And the other huge part is initiatives. The fact that there is the ability to get a bill proposed at all for the citizens to vote on without it ever having to touch legislature is another huge way that citizens are given power in Arizona, and not many states in the United States have this direct line to making changes to the Constitution, like Arizona has. And then the other thing, like I mentioned before, is that the governor does not get a vote. He or she cannot veto a proposed amendment or bill, like some governors and like our president can. Both of these systems, get referendums and initiatives, give power back to the people. And it just doesn't get more direct than that.